Welcome to the Romanian Reaver channel and my first impressions of Strike 4, a RTS game with a more classical theme in terms of gameplay, developed by Kite Games and published by Calypso Media Digital. The game itself was released in full release mode, not early access, on the 11th of August 2017. Yeah, it's a wee bit late, but better late than never, so to say. The game itself is quite an interesting throwback, and it kinda threw me through a time warp personally, because I used to play Strike 1 and 2 back in the early 2000s, like 2002, 2003-ish era. Well, Strike 1. Strike 2 was a wee bit later, around 2005, 2006-ish. And to be honest, Strike 4 doesn't really change all that much of the overall gameplay that I remember. Granted, it's been over a decade since I played those two games, more or less. But as much as I played, which is about 5 hours at the current time, which may sound little, but I've been diving through the campaigns at a quite prodigious rate. The campaigns themselves are kinda short, but it's 7 missions a pop and 3 campaigns per, one for the German, Soviet and Allies. Yeah, the Allies could have used a wee bit more fleshing out, particularly in the fact that it's mostly this part. Personally, I would have liked, some Egypt campaign stuff, more of that, the unknown fronts, not so much the very popular ones. Because these, are quite popularized by shows like Band of Brothers and so on. Before we get too far into that, the game itself is quite well optimized, has no problems running on my machine, whatever settings I deign to hit, and at the current time it's going on maximum. Well, this general idea is, its resolution is windowed, because I usually do recording work in windowed mode, but the resolution scale is pumped up way past 1080p. I can probably pump it up to this level and it wouldn't be any problems, which is basically double, i.e. more or less not, it would actually be 4K, more or less the counterpart to 4K. The graphics options are quite abundant, so to say, but I've never actually found myself in a particular need to poke around with them like other games. It's well polished in terms of optimization. Granted, I have a Fury Nitro and a Xeon E3 1231V3, which is basically an old school i7 not 8700K-ish type, so 8 threads, 4 cores. And the Fury Nitro is bouncing around between 1060 and 1070 levels most days, so in most days, most games. So pretty much average run-of-the-mill setup. Now, in terms of campaign stuff, what can we say? Or what can I say per se? You have some nice, interesting historical stuff you actually unlock by playing quite a wee bit, like for example this.
From August 23rd, 1942 until February 2nd, 1943.
Quite interesting, especially if you're a history buff. But yeah, you're more than likely here to see how the game plays per se. So let's load up. Oh, and one small point. If you're a novice to RTS games or you're a burnt out bastard like I am, there is no shame in easy mode. It's still decently challenging even for a more, how should I put this, experienced gamer in terms of Company of Heroes level games and onward. But for veterans of, like example, Red Alert 2, normal is gonna be a general idea, and only easy and normal. For a moment there I thought there was a hard, but no. Guess they don't want to poke the player too much with hard difficulty, because suffice to say, easy is normal and normal is hard. Now, how should I put this? The game itself does add in a wee bit of extra features here and there versus the two games I've played, Sunstrike 1 and 2. Like for example abilities, Russian tanks can for example ram enemy tanks. Like, there we have it. Basic gist of it is, the more heavily armored and the more healthy the tank is, that one's more likely to actually, survive the attempt. Now, in terms of overall gameplay, not much to say really. It's, as I said, a throwback more or less to pre-Company Heroes days, so infantry is per unit. Infantry goes into a down state whenever they're wounded enough. If artillery strikes them, they can actually be pulverized completely. Tank guns, so much I've not seen them actually wiping infantry off, so to say. So, unlike Sunstrike 1 and 2, for example, infantry in this game is much more important. Tanks have significantly lower view distances, so you are going to find yourself in situations where you need to rely on infantry charges to basically see in front of your bloody face, because otherwise, yeah, you're kind of boned and not the fun way. We're supposed to be pulling back. If I'm not mistaken, this is Kursk. I have managed to make it to Kursk both with the Russians and the Germans. For the Germans, it is basically a meat grinder. Pretty much historical in that regard. Wait. Exit and go here. Trying to get everybody out as quickly and as promptly as possible. Try not to lose too many troops, because with this game you don't know when you're gonna get, how should I put this, infinite troops more or less, and when you're not. Ooh. BTM 7s only. Come on, move. Oh fuck. We're gonna have to unpack these guys, or unfortify them. Okay. Pull out. In terms of damage models, the tanks are fairly realistically done. You will have issues with King Tigers, for example, as a allied or even Russian player, though the Russian tanks in general, well, their solution is to hit it with enough high explosive to not even give a damn. And for Germans, that is pretty much also the solution when you run into KV2s and you only have Panzer IV not Fs. E and below, I believe, were the ones that didn't really have much in terms of AP capabilities. Okay. Come on, guys. Are you guys moving? Come on. And yes, the Russian has pretty useless tanks. These things are not threatening to anything other than Panzer IVs in those early models too. Kind of the reason why I didn't bother with gathering these guys, because these guys are basically wafers, and even anti-aircraft guns will go straight through them. What the fuck? Okay, that's an interesting bug.
Я готов. Так точно. Слушаю. Двигай. Распоряжение. Враг. Поживее. Приказы. Так точно. Приказы.
Pull back, pull back, pull back.
Распоряжение. Уже иду.
Солдат противотанковых войск готов. Пулеметчик здесь. Пулеметчик идет.
Приказы. Координаты. Координаты. Распоряжение. Готовы к атаке.
Okay, we're holding. What can be said, really? In and of itself, it wouldn't be an offensive game for its time period, but for more modern RTS players who are used to games like, for example, as I said, Company of Heroes 1 or 2, Dawn of War, and so forth, it's an interesting proposition. But unless you're lucky and catch it on a sale, at the current time it's about 50 USD or 50 euros, so kind of interesting proposition, so to say. If you can manage to get it bundled with 2 or 3 mission DLCs, of which one's already completed and launched, Road to Normandy I believe it's called, yeah, I'd say it's a good enough buy for most RTS fans. As is, 50 USD or 50 euros for people in general, I say you're better off, how should I put this, not avoiding it, just waiting for a sale like 50 or 60%, or if you're a fan of really old style RTS games and don't really mind the absence of missions and the derpiness of the multiplayer, because the multiplayer can be a wee bit derpy thanks to the extra abilities and the line of sight issues, because yeah, tanks can be blind as hell, which can be frustrating, particularly if you're like, for example, a fan of German vehicles. But that's pretty much my first impressions of the game. Thank you for watching, or more precisely surviving up until this point, because gods know the editing's kinda interesting and my voice has a melodic tone to it. If you like what you saw, feel free to hit the subscribe button, like button, it does help out the statistics of the channel, gets more visible, you know, stuff like that. And to be honest, at one point I would like to actually make this a job, so I can do better content with better quality, more games, more coverage, you know, stuff like that. Take care.